welcome into the Week 9 episode of the G5 Beat. I'm Josh Jones with Baker Woolley and John Duncan. As always, guys, we have a few things to unpack this episode. What's going on?
Yeah, well, I feel that the realignment wheel just keeps on turning. Last week we discussed about the rumors of the American adding 6 teams from Conference USA, and looks like that did come to fruition. Was officially announced on Thursday of last week that those schools were going to the American, and it seems like right after that, started hearing some rumors about Southern Miss going to the Sun Belt, and maybe even a couple other teams from Conference USA joining Southern Miss to the Sun Belt. So, I mean, it's good for everybody involved except for Conference USA.
Yeah, you hear them going down the trash can.
Yeah, and Baker was just telling us right before we started recording that who is it, Baker, that CUSA is trying to look into possibly getting now?
Man, well, I mean, there were some sports writers tweeting out a few nights ago that they've discussed Tarleton State, McNeese State, Sam Houston State, a few of those teams, maybe some of the current independents out there of the world, but definitely maybe New Mexico State to pair with the UTEP. So a lot going on there, that's for sure, with what they're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, you could just tell they're going down the list.
Yeah, Liberty backing out, like they're no longer showing interest. Like,
hey, if you're Liberty, there's no way in hell you're joining Conference USA now.
No, and they might as well stay independent. But like, if you're CUSA, what other options do you have, really? I guess. I mean, other than going after these teams, I mean, you've been rated, especially that Western Division. Like, you don't have the media rights that these other conferences can offer. Like, what can they do to position themselves to come out at least to the level they were at before all this started? Can they do anything?
I don't think you can, but
yeah.
I mean, here's what I say. This is something that I have kind of had in the back of my head, and it's not what you want to do in today's landscape, but maybe you take this rebuild opportunity as a chance to brand yourself as more of a basketball power and try to pull in, some of the mid-majors that are competitive in the basketball arena there and see if you can do a little bit with that. But obviously you got to have some folks that can produce with football. But, I mean, listen, you want something to get your conference out there, and right now, I mean, those teams aren't going to do it when it comes to football. That's almost a given with what you're hearing, right?
Right.
What do you think? That's a good point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's a good point, though, because when you mentioned New Mexico State earlier, I mean, they're traditionally a pretty good basketball school. And also, if you can somehow convince, like a team like a Western Kentucky, who's got a very great basketball tradition, to stay in Conference USA, and Middle Tennessee possibly going to stay too, unless the MAC goes after those two schools. So I can definitely see your point, Baker, with there when trying to go maybe create your brand more with the basketball side of things. But we all know football is the driver.
It's the king.
Yeah. So, if you're Conference USA, you're losing all your teams, but I mean, you've got a lot of money because you're getting $3 million for each school leaving, and maybe even some more. So, I mean, you can rebuild, but it looks bad when you see Tarleton State at the top of your list is one of the teams that you're possibly looking into bringing up, because as Baker, you just reminded us before we started recording, Tarleton State is just now making the transition from D2 to FCS. So, I mean, you're going to have a couple more years on, transitioning them up to FBS. So I don't know. It's a mess. Leadership is a mess. I really just think Conference USA just kind of dug their own grave. And, I mean, I hate it for them because, they've been around for so long. They've been around for almost 30 years. And the old days was really good days for Conference USA. But just these last few years and this last media deal that they got, it's just you kind of saw the writing on the wall.
And real quick, too, I know you mentioned just a second ago for our listeners that Southern Miss was a number one there that is heavily rumored at this point. It's almost a guarantee to be coming to the Sun Belt. We're recording this Monday night, and the word out there, Southern Miss has put out there having a news conference tomorrow, a press conference, and Sun Belt's supposedly joining up to announce them coming. But so everyone's familiar, the other teams that are reportedly joining the Sun Belt here are Marshall, Old Dominion, and James Madison University. So you got 3 teams coming over from CUSA. So just looking at what's left of CUSA, John, help me if I forget anyone here, but I believe it's UTEP, it's Western Kentucky, it's Middle Tennessee State, Louisiana Tech, and FIU. Am I correct, John?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, looking at those schools, where do you see them going from here? Do you see them moving elsewhere, trying to move elsewhere, going independent, or do you see them staying and actually trying to go through with this rebuild?
There have been some rumors, nothing official, just talk, of course, but there's been some rumors that maybe Western Kentucky and Middle might consider, or the MAC might consider them. Louisiana Tech, I mean, they kind of, can't go to the Sun Belt after everything that's been done there. So they pretty much would have to go independent if CUSA falls apart. Or maybe you hope, because, way back in the day, Louisiana Tech used to be in the WAC. So maybe if the WAC becomes a P5, not a P5, a G5 league again, maybe you can join the WAC again. UTEP, I mean, I hate it for UTEP that the Mountain West won't even consider them. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I feel like they'd probably just all go independent, unless another conference sees value in them. But as of right now, we don't see that.
Well, does it benefit them more to go independent or to stay in those conferences, even if they pull in some of these teams from the FCS that aren't necessarily as popular or on the up as, you may think? I mean, listen, Sam Houston, they've played some good ball the last few years. Like, I believe they just won a national championship in football down in the FCS level, if I'm correct. So they're not bad by any means, but I mean, is it going to benefit them more to just move to the independent world at that point? What do you think?
No, it's more beneficial to just stay in the conference and stay in Conference USA and just kind of ride it out and hope that you don't get left behind the next realignment will start turning.
I kind of disagree. I think it's better to go independent because, I mean, they're at the mercy of whoever Conference USA can bring in, and that plate is not looking very good right now. At least if you go independent, you have you had more control over making your schedule and getting to a schedule to where it's competitive, to where you can compete for better bowl games. Maybe you can get, depending on the teams you schedule, better media rights. I mean, it ain't like they had great ones now anyway.
Well, to argue that point, the bowl games are all, for the most part, go to conference affiliations. So if you go independent, you're kind of screwing yourself on, unless you do really, really well, like a Liberty has.
Yeah, unless you do well, but I mean, also at the same time, like these bowl games that they could get into. I mean, I guess a bowl game's better, more practice time, more playing time, but I don't know, like, would sacrificing that bowl game for a better schedule and better opponents, would that be a benefit? I don't know.
Well, let me ask this: if these schools decide to go independent, what would their media contract with just them be like? How would that be compared to Conference USA?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That's a good point.
So you're losing money and you're losing scheduling, and I just don't see any good to come out of going independent. Like, and you can say you can go make a better schedule and play some maybe more money games and stuff, but I mean, at that point, you're just going the UConn route, and you can clearly see how UConn's doing right now.
And let's just call it for what it is. I would say that certain schools within those 5 can probably handle the independent schedule better than others. So, I mean, let's look at it, guys. Let's face it. I mean, I hate to say it for what it is, but Western Kentucky and Louisiana Tech, in my opinion, are on a different level right now from the other three. Now, granted, UTEP's having a really good year, but as far as support, they haven't had the support for a while. So I don't know if this is going to bring it on this year. I mean, look, they're in a decent size city, I guess. It's not, I mean, look, it's not like they're in Houston or Dallas or one of those, really main cities in Texas by any means, but El Paso's not tiny necessarily. So, I mean, how do you guys think that some of the smaller, less supported schools will fare, the FIUs and maybe Middle Tennessees of the world, because they haven't had a lot of support of late either?
And also something else, too, to kind of add on to that point, like a lot of these schools aren't even making money anyway off of football or athletics in general. Like, it already is as an expense to them. So maybe they just do it for temporary for a couple of years until maybe a different conference situation opens up.
Yeah, those other schools, I mean, if they tried the independent for a couple of years, they would realize really quickly that they would lose even more money, and that would in turn, cause them to consider even dropping down a level, or I mean, I hate to say it, but maybe even getting rid of the program altogether.
Yeah, I think it definitely benefits them more than it benefits like a Louisiana Tech or Western Kentucky, because they're at least competitive enough and have the facilities at the level to where they can, I think sustain the independent life if they needed to. But again, not saying that they will. But those are the two schools I really feel the worst for, Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky, because really good programs, like you mentioned, Western Kentucky's basketball has been off the charts. And heck, Louisiana Tech, I mean, I know it's not the most popular sport, but in the South it is. Their baseball, man, incredible. They hosted a super regional this year, I believe, or at least a regional. I think it maybe was a regional. NC State ended up coming out of it, but the Love Shack down there is what they call it. And, they had that stadium hopping there for that baseball regional. So good new facility down there, and a lot of action down there with the football program generally. So, hate it for both of them and hope to see something good come from it, maybe give it some time. Do you guys have anything else on the CUSA situation?
I don't. I think we pretty much touched on all of it.
Yeah.
I just want to chat about maybe what the Sun Belt's looking like right now in that situation here a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the Sun Belt, I mean, if rumors, are true that, like you just said, Southern Miss, ODU, James Madison, and Marshall, I mean, if those teams are all joining the Sun Belt, then, I mean, this is going to be a really good league. And I hate when people compare it, the AAC is the best G5 or the Mountain West is the best G5 or, whatever. Like, this setting up to be where both the Sun Belt, the AAC, and the Mountain West, and I mean, we still love the MAC too and Conference USA if it can stay around, but those three leagues are, I think pretty much even, and they're all three very solid leagues. So I can't wait to see, future G5 football, going forward with those new leagues. If the rumors are true, with those teams joining the Sun Belt.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is too, with the new Sun Belt League, they're going to 14 teams. They're looking to split them into two different divisions. I mean, they already have the divisions, but the word is they're going to move Troy over to the West, and then you would have Old Dominion, JMU, and Marshall joining up in the East. So you'd have a league stretching there in the East from Huntington, West Virginia, down to Statesboro, Georgia. In the West, you'd be from Hattiesburg over to, well, I guess not Hattiesburg. It'd be over more. Help me out here, Alabama.
It'd be Troy,
Troy. Be Troy over to San Marcos there,
Texas State.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, definitely more compact leagues there when you look at it, the two divisions. Really, I would say a really fun Eastern division there, adding in Marshall and, the potential of what JMU could be. And I mean, ODU continues to grow. I think it possibly helps the conference with basketball, adding the ODUs and Marshalls of the world in. And JMU's been known to have decent basketball in the past at their, within their conference. So who knows what that will bring to it, but a lot of fun competition there in the Sun Belt going forward. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I love the the regionalization of everything. How you just said, with those teams in the East and the teams with the West, like every team isn't so far away from each other, so that cuts down on travel costs. That allows for more fan travel, to go to some away games. And all of these schools, that they're adding have great fan support. So and have always, especially with Southern Miss and Marshall, have always traditionally had great fan support. So I love it, for Sunbelt and their thinking behind what they're doing. And, it kind of seems like the AAC is going more like, Metro Conference kind of a feel, which kind of screwed Conference USA. But, I mean, I do like, I like, hey, both leagues are going two different ways, and I'm happy for everybody that's, getting to join their conference. I'm happy for the teams from CUSA that's leaving to join the Sun Belt, and I'm happy for the teams from CUSA that's joining the AAC. It seems like everybody except for, Western Kentucky and La Tech are, should be happy.
And I'll say this, it did screw CUSA. Yeah, I'm with you there. But at the same time, and Mike Oresco was quick to point this out, the American really somewhat had that formula before CUSA with a lot of the teams that they had in the conference, and it worked out for them. So, listen, they're trying with that same recipe, trying to evolve some of these teams in the metro area that are maybe in their growth process. So maybe it does work out for them. Maybe they do something a little different than what CUSA did as far as the growth. And look, they've got some teams that are already established there that could maybe help move them along, if you will. So look, give them credit for what it is. But the fun thing is, from what it looks like, and listen, these are all just rumors, but it looks like ESPN is trying to pump both the American and the Sun Belt, because again, ESPN kind of has control over the TV rights, and the rumor is they're going to give both of them a similar TV contract and give them money to where they can pay more for nicer facilities and pay their coaches more to have good coaches. And hey, that just builds all of the brands, and that just builds the quality of the the TV, what we're seeing on TV, these games here. So that's exciting for everyone as a fan, I would say.
Yeah, and that's exactly why you didn't see any Sunbelt teams going over to the AAC or the AA teams from the AAC going over to the Sunbelt. The old Mickey Mouse definitely had his hands involved on this realignment for sure.
It looks like it. Josh, you have any comments you think besides what me and John are going through?
No, it's kind of, I just like listening to you guys talk. Y'all are the experts in each of those conferences. I was just kind of looking through, like, I don't know. I'm still stuck on this, like, what does Conference USA do? And I'm just kind of like, Conference USA, their payouts have been horrible. So, like, they just have nothing they can offer anybody. I agree with everything you guys say. I don't know. It's just a crazy time. I think there's still a lot left to be settled, but I don't know. I really have no other nuggets of information to add.
Real quick, how do you guys think like the bowl setup's going to be affected at this point? Anything that you see changing there, or you think it stays the same?
I think it'll change, but ESPN also controls that. So they'll change it to whatever sees best, and they may eliminate some bowls, or they may change the ties. But I think there will be changes, but I think it'll be after all this realignment's done.
Yeah, I agree there. And hey, at least right now the AAC and the SEC are involved, are affiliated with the Birmingham Bowl, so maybe UAB could play in the Birmingham Bowl.
Man, what
Do you want to bowl in your home stadium?
No. I'm just messing around. Hey, but going back real quick before we move on from realignment, Josh, just kind of said this though. I mean, I don't think we're entirely done with this right now. I mean, who's to say, in 2023, which is, the rumored date when all these teams will make their move. I mean, who's to say before then Memphis or Boise don't make the jump to the Big 12? And, I mean, here we go again. I mean, this wheels could start turning very quickly. So
does the Mountain West bring in some of the Western schools from the American? Do they move over to the Mountain West? There's been rumors of that as well. Who knows? I'm with you.
Let me ask you this. Do you think after this round of realignment's done, do you think the next one will be not teams moving, but maybe conferences merging, and we start to get into the super conference realm?
Well, in a way,
I mean,
what it's been at times, you're already starting to get to that because, I mean, you're looking at conferences that had 10 teams in there, and now you're looking at conferences getting up to, 16, 14.
Yeah.
They continue to grow. So depends on what you want to call a super conference and how large of a conference that really is, right?
Yeah, and I'm thinking like 20, 24 teams.
Yeah, it's almost like, what if, ESPN just decided, well, screw it. We're just going to take the best from the Sun Belt and the best from the AAC and just make a, big league there. I mean, we could already be trending towards that.
It's always possible. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how long that would take to get to that point. If that's soon, who knows?
I mean, I still think we're about, 7 to 10 years. I mean, it's not in the immediate future.
It's not immediate. It's just hypotheticals.
Yeah. That just, at that point, it almost seems like rather than a super conference, and this is something that people have talked about before, and I kind of hate to see this, but at that point, it's almost like the Power Five separating from the Five when you start doing that. And I really don't want to see it get into too much of that, So
if I had to bet money, that's what I think eventually will happen. I hope it doesn't, but that to me is the most likely scenario. Unfortunately, I don't want to see that, but
it could. But hey, fingers crossed that it doesn't right now. Again, I'd say we push that off as long as we can. Let's just enjoy the good football we've got for now.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And if I'm Judy McLeod from Conference USA, I'm getting Notre Dame on the phone real quick. All right. Well, that being said, we'll go ahead and move into our Week 8 headlines of the week. Baker, you want to go over our headlines?
I do. I don't even know how to follow what you just said. I'll try. So anyway, headlines of the week here. Yeah. So first one. Houston surviving an upset bid from ECU there in Oak. That sets up a huge matchup with SMU coming up, boys.
Yes. What a game, man. I mean, what did it take, like 10 hours to finish with all the delays and stuff? Like, golly.
What a game.
Yeah, really was. Next one, I'm sorry, John, but Rice stunned UAB. I mean, no one saw that coming, but definitely in the headlines this week. Aside from that, New Mexico State upset Wyoming, which was a really big upset there in the Mountain West. San Diego State held on to take down Air Force there and keep their ranking intact. Fresno outlasted Nevada in a good game there. My boys from Boone, App State, took down Coastal on a walk-off field goal with time expiring last Wednesday night there. And,
great game.
Yeah, had an awesome game there. And, guys, Louisiana Monroe makes it 2 big upsets in a row after surprising South Alabama this week. That's back-to-back wins over Liberty and South Alabama. So, big win by the Warhawks.
You think Akron's upset that they fired Terry Bowden now?
I tell you. Something.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. If he couldn't get it going up there, I mean, they probably thought he wasn't the guy. But that Cajun food puts a fire in you down there.
They're running to the restroom. Yeah.
There you go. If I'm Akron, I'm calling LeBron James after he retires and just say, "Come on, coach."
Why not?
Well, all right. I guess we can go ahead and go over our Week 8 players of the week. And I guess I'll go ahead and get started. Where Jay Ducker from NIU, 31 rushes for 183 yards as the Huskies get a 39-38 win over the Central Michigan Chippewas. I mean, Jay Ducker, his performance was impressive by himself, but guys, it's so much respect for this NIU program, what they're doing this year. 6-2 overall, first place. I mean, it's setting up for, a really big matchup next week as NIU travels down to Kent State. But, I mean, just shocked me, man. NIU, I didn't expect them to win a couple games. Nonetheless, win 6 games already. I mean, they're getting close to maybe having a double-digit win season. So good for the Huskies.
Absolutely, and I'll take next one, guys. So for me, I stuck with my homer pick here, and man, Malik Williams he tore it up against Coastal. Malik Williams is a receiver for my App State Mountaineers, 206 yards, 1 touchdown there. I don't know what was going on, but Chase Bryce definitely found some mismatch there that Coastal just could not keep up with.
And then I am going to Chris Smith with the Raging Cajuns. He carried the ball 24 times for 238 yards and 2 touchdowns in their win over the Arkansas State Red Wolves. Everybody I kind of assumed it might have been a defensive game at the beginning of the game, kind of opened up a bit and then got back defensive in the fourth quarter. But Chris Smith dominated on the ground. Like I said, averaged almost 10 yards per carry. He did have one long 74-yard run and a 2-play drive, but just really that ground game came on strong for the Raging Cajuns as they took down Arkansas State Red Wolves.
Very nice. Yeah, that game was a lot closer than I was anticipating it to be. Yeah, I kind of looked up and I was like, what is Louisiana doing in this game? But hey, credit Arkansas State, man, on making some adjustments from the last couple of weeks and giving Billy Napier a hard-fought game down there in Jonesboro. Well, we will go ahead and move into our Week 9 games of the week, and we'll go ahead and start in the American as the SMU Mustangs travel down to Houston to take on the Houston Cougars. This will be a Saturday night game at 6 p.m. Central Time kickoff, and it'll be televised on ESPN2. Right now, it's basically a pick 'em, but right now Vegas does have Houston as a slight 1-point favorite in this ball game. Baker, was just mentioning what happened this past weekend with Houston and East Carolina and barely squeaking out that win against ECU, 31-24 in overtime. I was, number one, impressed that Houston was able to come out of there with the victory, because for a while it was looking like East Carolina was maybe going to be able to take that game from the Cougars. But credit to, Dana Holgerson and the Cougars on finding a way to, defy Mother Nature and everything and get out of there with a win. But they've got a really tough challenge with this SMU Mustang offense coming to town, led by Mordecai. They just manhandled Tulane Thursday night, beating the Green Wave 55-26. This offense is just insane. Tanner Mordecai has. Would you believe me if I told you this? He already has 29 touchdowns in the season.
Man,
29,
that's insane.
And he's throwing for over 2,300 yards already.
That offense. Just they do some crazy things through the air, man.
Is he crazy. The top Heisman candidate in the G5 right now?
Yes, But if you had told me at the beginning of the year, I would have maybe said, Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati. But man, Mordecai, yeah, you've got to give it him as at least the G5 Heisman right now.
For sure. Yeah.
I will say this, guys, though. I don't know if SMU has faced a defensive line like Houston has. So I'm really excited to see that matchup, because I mean, you just look a couple weeks ago. I mean, I feel like Houston had like 10 sacks in their game against Tulane. But I'm really excited to see how the SMU offensive line holds up against those big nasties up front for the Houston Cougars. But I mean, what's the over under on this game? Okay, 62.5. Yeah, because I was going to say I could definitely see this being a shootout type of a game. But guys, I'm gonna go with the underdog. I just don't see how SMU doesn't come out of Houston with the win here. There's just too much talent on the offensive side of the ball for SMU. And also, I mean, has Houston really been tested? I mean, I guess they got their biggest test last week with East Carolina.
Had to go to overtime.
It had to go to overtime. I mean, and they lost, really a head scratcher loss to Texas Tech. They just fired their coach at the beginning of the year. You know, I think Houston was up like 28 points in that game and blew it. But yeah, I like SMU in this spot. So definitely forget the 1 point. Take SMU outright.
You know, looking at these teams, I mean, they're so even. Like, kind of looking on paper, you know, they have two common opponents, Navy and Tulane. Obviously, SMU took Tulane to the woodshed, beating them 55-26. Houston took Tulane, relatively similar score, 40-22. The Navy, Houston won 28-20, and then SMU won 31-24. So they play the opponent similarly. You know, it's just, I think, John, you hit the nail on the head when you said, I don't know if SMU's faced a defense quite like, and especially a defensive line like Houston has. Their defense is a little stingy. Granted, you know, you have a very odd point. Have they really been tested at all this year? But this defense has only given up 277 yards a game, only 173 through the air. But Mordecai in this offense is doing insane things against everybody they're playing. And I don't know. I almost a coin flip here. I feel like Houston's going to win this game, but I can't discount Mordecai. So because of that, I'm going against my gut, and I'm going to say SMU wins this game.
I hear you. So, listen, my thing is, one thing I think that we're forgetting here, I'm with you that Houston hasn't really faced anyone, but let's look at SMU's schedule. Who have they really faced so far? I mean, their biggest win, I would say, would be over a TCU team.
Yeah.
And they have a losing record. I mean, you know, they're one of the bottom teams in the Big 12 right now. And outside of that, I mean, Navy, USF, La Tech, North Texas, Abilene Christian. Tell me who really, you know, rings a bell out of those. And I mean, my answer would be none of them, quite frankly. So I hear what you're saying, but to me, you're kind of looking at two teams who really haven't been tested. And in my opinion, the reason SMU is ranked and Houston isn't is because Houston has that one blemish. They couldn't finish off Texas Tech. And again, it's funny. You're looking at a Texas Tech team that just fired their head coach, but honestly, their record's not terrible. So if they could have finished that off, it wouldn't have been the worst win in the world by any means if you are Houston there. So I'm with you in that. I think that makes it kind of an interesting matchup. But getting down to like offense and defense and just looking at them, I think you've got the Houston defense versus the SMU offense. Like SMU has a really incredible offense. Houston has a really incredible defense. So who's going to break there? To me, I trust Tanner Mordecai. I'm big on the Mordecai train, and I like SMU this week. So I think it's really going to come down to that. Can Houston stop that passing attack from the from the Mustangs there? To me, it's no. I think SMU takes them and exposes Houston as a team that honestly I think loses by a couple of scores, couple of touchdowns at least.
And yeah, I agree. And SMU's defense, I mean, they just got a bend, don't break mentality because Houston's offense is good, but it ain't world beaters. It's not SMU. So they just need to get a couple of stops and hope that Mordecai can can really go to town against this Houston defense. But I think it's gonna be one of the lines.
Definitely. Well, we'll go ahead and move into our second game. Now, this game was our G5 Beat Game of the Week that you guys selected for us on Twitter, on our Twitter poll. Now, if you aren't following us on Twitter, definitely give the G5 Beat a follow on Twitter at twitter.com/the-G5Beat. But this game is a Mountain West game. Boise State travels down to take on the Colorado State Rams, 6 p.m. Central Time kickoff on CBS Sports Network. Right now, Boise is a 2.5-point road favorite at Colorado State down there in Fort Collins. Guys, last time we saw Boise, they lost to Air Force 24-17 in a close game. But the week before that had looked really good, and beating it was a top 10 at the time, a BYU team, a 26-17 game, and really just dominating that game on the defensive side of the ball. Now, looking on the Colorado State side of things, I mean, they were, playing pretty well. They just took an L to Utah State, 26-24. But before that, I mean, they had won 3 of the 4 games before that. And the only game they lost was at number 5, Iowa, in a very close game, 24-14. So Colorado State's been playing better football, get to host the Boise State Broncos. What are you guys' reads on this game? I mean, am I crazy by wondering why Boise is just a 2.5-point favorite and not more, or am I missing something, or what?
To me, I don't know. The story for Boise State is consistency. They don't have any.
Yeah.
Towards the beginning of the season, they played UCF close. Thought they should have won that game. They played a very good Oak State team, very close, only lost by a point there. Beat Utah State, Nevada. Yeah, they took a L there. Beat BYU, like you said, and then, came out against Air Force and took an L there. Like, what Boise State teams want to show up? And, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. And this defense that Boise State has, they got to do some work there. I mean, they're giving up almost 200 yards on the ground. I mean, they're giving up more yards than the offense is gaining per game. So I really think Boise has a lot riding on this game. And I think I said that last week. But I think, they have a lot this week as well. I mean, going 3-5 in Avalos' first year, starting off the season, I don't know, man.
Do you think the bye week? Do you think the bye week might have helped Boise maybe kind of get situated? And
I hope so. Maybe kind of let them focus on themselves, focus internally. Maybe plug some holes on that defensive side of the ball. Yeah. And with Colorado State, I mean, they're a pretty balanced attack, averaging almost 175 yards on the ground, 230 through the air. Their defense has been pretty good. And if you look at the teams they play, they've been tested. I mean, like you said, against Iowa, against San Jose State, which is an okay team, and you got Toledo. I mean, held Toledo to 6 points with that offense. Colorado State's pretty tested, at least in my opinion. So I don't know. I actually kind of like Colorado State in this spot, even though Boise's coming off a bye week. I'm kind of leaning the Rams.
Ooh. Baker?
So, quick take here for you. All time, Boise State has never lost to Colorado State. 10-0. It comes to an end this week, boys.
Thank you.
I'm going with Colorado State. I'm with you there because, to me, it comes right back to what you just said. It's the run game, man. It's the run game. It's you've got Colorado State, who's got a pretty good rush offense there. I mean, they're averaging $172 on the ground, and Boise's giving up almost 200 yards on the ground. So, I mean, how often are you giving up 200 yards rushing against the other team and winning? To me, not very often, because that's a bad day of defense there against the other team's ground attack. So I mean, I think Colorado State puts the ball on the ground early and often, and they run all over the Bronco defense. Now, for Boise, as far as what they can do, I mean, I think they're going to have to rely on their passing game because, I mean, have you seen their rushing numbers lately? They're averaging 87 yards a game running the ball. That sucks. That sucks. It's not going to get it done. So, okay, put them up against Colorado State. Colorado State's passing defense is pretty solid, to be honest. Like, I mean, they're not even giving up 200 yards through the air. So, to me, I think the strengths of Colorado State play to the weaknesses of Boise. And, oh, by the way, it's in Fort Collins, like you said. But, hey, weird things could happen. Boise's never lost to them. But I'm all on the Colorado State train this weekend, fellas.
I just want to get out to that New Belgium beer garden they got at Colorado State and get a couple cold ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that scares me though that you guys are on the other side, because when I was, reviewing this game or previewing this game, looking at my notes and stuff, I was thinking that Boise was going to win by at least 7, maybe 10 points, but I've got Colorado State winning outright. So I might need to go back and look at my numbers again. What do y'all see it being a low scoring game? Because the over under is 51.5. Do y'all see it being low scoring?
Yeah, I said it low scoring because I think Baker was exactly spot on when I said I think Colorado starts with the ball on the ground and keeps going. Like, I think they're going to run the ball a lot. I think they're going to play ball control. And
keep that clock ticking.
Keep it ticking.
Keep Boise's offense off the field and just keep running the ball, and before you know it, they're going to look up, and there's just not going to be a lot of time in the game. And
exactly,
Colorado State's going to kill the time possession in that game.
Nice. Well, guys, we have one more Mountain West game that we need to preview. This is the Fresno State Bulldogs travel down to San Diego to take on the San Diego State Aztecs. This will be a 9:30 p.m. Central Time kickoff. Also on CBS Sports Network, so you can just leave it on CBS Sports Network to follow the Boise Colorado State game. Right now, San Diego State is a very slight 1-point favorite in this ball game over Fresno. And San Diego State, man, I don't know if y'all got to put eyes on that game at Air Force, but I mean, the score is a little deceiving. The final score was 20-14, San Diego State over Air Force, but San Diego State jumped up 20-0 and just controlled that whole game until late in the fourth quarter when Air Force got going. But I was just very impressed with what I saw from Brady Hoke and the Aztecs, because, I mean, if you guys go back and listen to our preview from last week, we were all on board with Air Force getting that win easily over San Diego State. But San Diego State came out there, dominated, got the ground game going. Defense shut out that Air Force running attack. And I was just very impressed with what I saw out of San Diego State. Looking at the Fresno State side of things, hey, got a very big win over Nevada, 34-32, close win, but a win nonetheless, 2 in a row now, after shutting out Wyoming 17-0 the week before. So maybe Fresno's getting things rolling after losing to Hawaii a couple weeks ago. It was a very disappointing loss for Fresno. They were ranked in the top 25 heading into the top 20 heading into that game and lost. But maybe Fresno's got things going back in the right direction. Jake Hayner, is he getting close to 100%? I feel like he gets hit every single game. But maybe
he still got 2,500 yards.
Exactly, yeah, and over 20 touchdowns too. Yeah, so that's Hayner balling out, man. But guys, I'm never going to disrespect San Diego State again. Even though I picked Fresno State before the season to win the Mountain West, I'm just been so impressed with what I've seen out of the Aztecs. I think the Aztecs get the win here at home over Fresno State. What do you guys reads on this game?
I'm just going to go ahead and give you my Sunday morning headline. And Fresno says no. I think Fresno upsets the Aztecs. And if the Aztecs win, I'll be right with you, John. It'll be the last time I disrespect them. But I think that loss that Fresno had at the beginning of October to Hawaii really kind of gave them some perspective, and I think they're playing a whole lot better. And I really like what Hayner's doing. He keeps getting hit, but he keeps balling out. 2,500 yards, 22 touchdowns, only 6 picks. This offense is averaging almost 500 yards a game. And now I know San Diego's defense is pretty good. They only give up, 279 total per game. But I really like what Hayner's doing. I really like this offense. I really like this team. I think after that loss, they kind of refocused. And I like Fresno to go in and pull off the upset.
Yeah, so the one interesting thing to me to point out with San Diego State this week is that they, in my opinion, they haven't faced a quarterback to the caliber of what they're going to see in Haener yet, because they haven't faced Nevada with Carson Strong. I mean, look, Air Force is a run team. San Jose State, their quarterback, their main guy, Starkle, he was injured. New Mexico, Towson, Utah, Arizona. I mean, you're looking at these teams. Utah is a big name. Their quarterback transferred out. My point is they haven't faced a guy like Haener, so how are they going to react when they face him? I think that's going to be one of the bigger storylines of this game. Is Haener going to be able to just drop back and do what he wants, do what he's used to against the Aztecs? For me, I'm with you, John. My personal opinion is no. And that's just based off of what I've seen with San Diego State. They're so strong right now, man. I mean, all around defensive performances, they're not giving up anything really against the rush or the pass. So, listen, Jake Hayner's an awesome quarterback. I'm one of his biggest fans, honestly. Like, he's one of my favorite players in college football this year. But I think that San Diego State is a lot to deal with. I think they are a very, very good defensive team, and I think they slow Haener down. They don't completely stop him, but they slow him down. And granted, they're going to have to score some points against a team with an offense like Fresno, but I think they keep Fresno. I want to just set the number. I think they keep Fresno under 25, so 24 or less, something like that. And I think if they do that, they're okay with outscoring them, and I think they pull out the win. So give me the Aztecs this week in a big one. Very close matchup, though. I'm big on that game.
Yeah, and well, to say this, Aztecs can't win in a shootout, so their defense is going to have to show up.
No, you're right. Definitely, yeah. Looking forward to that matchup, between Haener and that San Diego State defense, for sure. Well, guys, we have some games that we'll put on our Twitter poll for Week 10 for you guys to, help us pick out a game to preview. We do have 3 definite games that we're going to preview for Week 10, and that's going to be UTSA at UTEP, Northern Illinois and Kent State, and Army and Air Force. So we're definitely going to preview those 3 games for you guys next week. But we need your help in picking one more game to make it 4 games for us to preview next week. And, as I mentioned earlier, go follow us on Twitter at the G5 Beat on Twitter. And these 4 games, Marshall and FAU, SMU and Memphis, South Alabama, Troy, and Central Michigan, Western Michigan. So pick one of those games and help us have a 4th game to preview for you guys next week. But again, thank you guys as always for, the constant voting and just feedback that you give us about the show. And just, thank you for subscribing to us. If you're not subscribed to our podcast on a podcast platform, go ahead and hit that follow or subscribe button, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Amazon, TuneIn, wherever. Just make sure that, or Google, just make sure that you're subscribed to us on one of those. So that way you don't miss any future episodes from the G5 Beat. But, as I just mentioned, we appreciate each and one of you for listening to us week in and week out. And just, if you haven't already too, tell a friend or two about us. If you've got a friend that went to the school that you went to that's a G5 school or is a big fan of that school, go ahead and tell them about us. We think we do a pretty good job covering the group of 5 on a week in and week out basis. And basically, for the most part, sticking to the group of 5. So, but nonetheless, thank you guys as always for listening to us. And just for taking the time to download our episodes and listen to us. Josh or Baker, you guys got anything? Oh, yeah, we could give our sentimental headlines. Duh. So Josh already gave his. Baker, you want to go and give yours?
Absolutely, man. Listen, usually I try to be clever with this, but I struggled with it this week just with what they had. For me, I said the Owls put a dent in UTEP's magical season. I've got FAU taking UTEP this week, and UTEP's had an awesome year, 6-1 so far, bowl eligible. Believe it or not, I think FAU's even maybe favored in that game, but hey, listen, to me, that's a little bit of an upset, and that's a headline to me after what all UTEP's been able to accomplish this year.
Nice. Well, mine, if you're a Coastal Carolina fan, you might want to mute for just a couple seconds. I've got those guys from Troy heading down to Coastal Carolina and Conway to take on the Shants. I've got Troy with the outright upset over Coastal Carolina. I really think, Troy can play some really good defense. They're okay on the offensive side of the ball, but I just, that loss to App this past week, I think really just sent shockwaves through Conway, South Carolina, in that Coastal program. Just very disappointed right now. They're very disappointed right now, and I think Troy can just come in there and catch them again and get 2 losses in a row for Coastal. But that will be a Thursday night game at 6:30. If you guys want to watch that on ESPN2, we'll be watching that for sure. But looking forward to another great week of a Group of 5 action. But guys, we'll be back next week to recap what happens in Week 9 and get you ready for Week 10. But as always, enjoy watching some football.